Perhaps one of the most anticipated systems of all time for ESO, Scribing is finally here. This precursor to spellcrafting brings with it 11 new skills that's going to shake up the meta for every role in 12-man content. There is so much going on here, and it can all seem a bit overwhelming at first, but don't worry, this video is going to give you a basic breakdown of the new system, and then I'm going to give you my top 5 skills to look forward to when this goes live with Update 42. We have a lot to discuss, so let's get into it. In order to unlock the Scribing system, you must complete the intro quest in order to gain access to the Scalarium, the Scribing altar, and your first grimoire. A grimoire is just a fancy name for a scribable skill, and there are 11 total skills that you can unlock, most of which you can purchase at the merchant in the Scalarium for a pretty low cost, but a couple of which are locked behind some of the main quest lines associated with the Scalarium. After you unlock a grimoire, you can head over to the Scribing altar to begin applying different types of scripts that change what the ability does. There are 3 categories of scripts, and you must select one, but only one, from each category in order to create the ability. The focus scripts are aimed towards the primary function of a skill, including damage type like flame, frost, shock, etc., or base function such as taunt, heal, chain, shield, and so on. The signature scripts are what really make the abilities unique. These vary from skill to skill, but it's this section that will likely add the most power in the most unique way to your scribed ability. I'll talk a lot more about these types of scripts in the rankings. Finally, the affect scripts give a special type of buff or debuff. There aren't very many affect scripts that really stand out to me. We can source 90% of our affect script choices more efficiently in other ways, so think of this section more as a way to make up for buffs that you might want and might be missing due to comp restrictions for whatever reason. That said, however, the most valuable scripts for 12-man rating as it stands seem to be AoE sources of minor vulnerability and minor brittle. The scribed abilities that offer these debuffs in an AoE radius are going to be a must-have. The exact way to acquire all of these scripts are a bit ambiguous. They drop randomly from different sources around the world, such as world bosses or dolmens, for example. Completing all of the Scalarium main quests gives you an increased chance to receive scripts from these sources. The final bit of info that I feel is worth going over is the damage potential of these types of abilities. Each ability has a signature script called Lingering Torment, which allows the ability to do damage over time. There are 2 categories of these dots, either 5 or 20-second damage over time effects. The final way to use these abilities are as spammables. I built what I believed to be the strongest instant tick of damage for each grimoire. I then compared the tooltips of all of these different damage types and compared them with both the average DPS output on a CMX and the tooltips of important skills like Whip, Talons, Whirling Blades, since some of these spammables can do AoE damage, Rapid Strikes, our go-to world spammable, and Degeneration, our go-to 20-second damage over time effect. The results were a bit underwhelming. The skill with the strongest spammable damage in 1 second was Torchbearer, but you couldn't really add much in the way of damage to this ability, so the next best bet was Traveling Knife. This had a 12k tooltip compared to Rapid Strike's total cast damage being over 15k. So neither of these scribed abilities are strong enough on their own to even compete with traditional world-based spammables if you don't have a good class spammable. For example, the DK's Whip outperforms Rapid Strikes mainly because of the skill's utility. So even though Whip has an 11.5k tooltip, none of the new scribed skills will outperform Whip. Another option, Elemental Explosion, with the status effect script that instantly applies Burning, Chilled, and Concussed, might have a chance at competing, coming in with a max tick of 16.8k with all of the status effect damage included. That said, it's rarely ever worth replacing daggers, so I just doubt that this will make its way into the meta. The next category are 20-second dots. There's no easy way to say it, but they are all just awful. They're terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. The strongest was Vault with a tooltip of 11.4k over 20 seconds, compared to a weak ability like Degeneration, which is at least situationally meta, which has a tooltip of 22.2k over 24 seconds. Nearly double the damage. Vault is also very impractical to use in 12-man, since it sends you so far back when you cast it. The 5-second dot abilities do have potential though. Most of these abilities have the same tooltip, so I chose Soul Burst to test. The initial tick of Soul Burst hit for 6.1k with a 6.4k dot per second, and when compared to a skill like Talons that does 6.9k on initial tick and a 6.8k dot, it's clear that this Scribed ability is comparable to one of the strongest skills in the game. These 5-second dots could very potentially make their way into the meta for some classes. The main problem with all of these abilities, though, is that if you want them to do good damage, you have to spend 2 of your 3 scripts in order to get the ability to do so. And on top of that, none of the affect scripts really give us any unique buffs that we can't source more efficiently elsewhere. The only affect scripts that might be good are the ones that give us our major weapon and spell damage buffs, or the ones that give us our major weapon and spell crit buffs. The selection of skills that offer these buffs, though, are very limited. If we had access to these buffs on every skill, they might see more value. But otherwise, I think the damage of these abilities need a little bit of a buff before they make it to live. And now, the moment that you've been waiting for, my top 5 Scribed abilities coming with Gold Road in June. I've had the chance to mess around with all of these abilities in an exclusive playtest that occurred near the end of March, for a couple of days in Amsterdam at the ESO 10 event, and for about a week on the PTS. After all of my testing on the dummy and even in real content, here are my top 5 Scribed abilities to look forward to when Gold Road goes live in June. In the number 5 spot, we have Ulfsild's Contingency. This skill has a focus script that can offer you or an ally a massive damage shield from a tanking standpoint, or a pretty strong burst heal from a healer standpoint. It has a unique signature script that gives you an unnamed damage reduction buff that reduces damage taken by 8% for 7 seconds, making it a very tanky skill choice. It also offers a script that applies the affect scripts in an AoE on the ground, making it very useful for buffing and debuffing from the support perspective. My top picks for the affect script includes Minor Breach, Minor Protection, or being one of the only sources of AoE minor vulnerability in the game. In the number 4 spot, we have Torchbearer. This ability could easily make it to the 1 spot if its range was adjusted a little bit. The current cone of the ability makes it a little tricky to use well. However, when the fight consists of pixel stacking and burning, this will clearly be meta. The primary value of this ability is speccing it out for ult gen, choosing the focus script that gives 1 ult to allies per sweeps, with 3 sweeps per cast, and a signature script that either reduces damage taken by 30% for 2.2 seconds, or increases damage taken to enemies with disabling effects by 10% for 6 seconds with each sweep. That means even more damage when off balance is active. Its beneficial affect scripts include AoE Minor Breach, Minor Cowardice, Minor Heroism, Minor Resolve, or one of the few sources of Minor Vitality. Coming in at number 3, I have Traveling Knife. This will be a must-have for optimized damage dealing in any comp, most likely slotted on a buff DD. The focus and affect scripts really don't do much. The value lies in the signature scripts. Assassin's Misery increases the chance to apply status effects on enemies by 100% for 10 seconds. This means that we don't need to run double charged anymore to get the value out of the status effect changes in update 41. Instead, we can run this ability on a damage dealer and go back to Nern charged for even more group damage. The other script worth looking at is Warrior's Opportunity. This increases martial damage taken by 8% for 5 seconds. The short duration means that Traveling Knife would most likely have to be used as a spammable, perhaps on a buff Crow or buff Sork, but in fights where we run Azure Blight, which will be buffed by this, it will be a must-have. Coming in at number 2, we have Soul Burst. This ability is fantastic on a tank, healer, or damage dealer. For damage dealing, you would likely choose the damage type of your choice plus Lingering Torment, which makes this ability do damage that is near equivalent to Talons. This makes the skill most likely meta on every class for trash, and potentially meta on single target or AoE boss fights for many classes. The damage is strong, and the damage is dealt in a pretty big AoE radius. There is a lot of fight-specific testing that needs to be done to see where this ability will be worth running, but I would be shocked if we don't see it pop up on many boss fights for many classes. For tanking, you can use the skill as a massive AoE damage shield, giving allies impacted an 8k damage shield that scales with your max health. Pair this with the signature script that consumes a soul gem to build 2 ultimate once every few seconds, and you have a clear meta ability for tanking. For healing, you can make the skill do both a burst and heal over time, producing HPS in an AoE radius much like Echoing Vigor, adding another really strong hot to a healer's toolkit. If these incredible scripts weren't enough, Soul Burst offers one of 2 sources of Minor Courage, as well as Minor Resolve, buff, or for damage dealing, AoE Minor Breach or AoE Minor Maim. Easily one of the best abilities coming with the new scribing system. Before taking a look at the number 1 slot, I wanted to give you a few honorable mentions. These abilities are really good, but only have one combination that make them really good in my opinion. The first of these is Wield Soul. Its most beneficial signature script is Druid's Resistance, which offers 1000 mag and stam with every cast. On a tank, when we pair this with 3 times reduced mag cost glyphs, the ability ends up only costing about 1.6k mag, which since we restore 1000 mag with every cast, means that it costs only 600 magicka. This ability is a quarter of the cost of a skill like Igneous Shield on the DK, which restores 1.1k stam due to the DK passives when we cast the ability. This gives every class that's not a DK the resource restoration power of a skill like Igneous Shield, changing the game for tanking and resource restoration on every class. The next skill worth mentioning is Trample, primarily for the script Thief Swiftness, which offers a small area of speed that gives allies an unnamed buff that increases movement speed by 15%. This will be a must-have in trash pulls alongside rapids. The last honorable mention goes to Shield Throw. You can spec this skill out so that it's a 10-second taunt, and so that it gives major maim for 10 seconds as well, replacing the need for a skill like Frost Clench, which you would have to cast once every 4 seconds to get the same effect. And with that, in the number 1 slot, the most valuable new ability coming with the scribing system, get ready healers, Mender's Bond. The HPS and range of this skill alone is astounding. It functions a bit like Guard, where you need to attach to an ally in order to get the skill to function. However, at first glance, the skill looks odd, since it reads to only affect tethered targets and those standing in the tether. Currently, though, it actually functions as a massive radius, extending between you and the attached ally. You can make this skill give a strong damage shield that refreshes once every second, make it a strong hot, make it a guard-like ability that transfers 10% of the damage your allies take to you. You can make it restore an insane amount of mag and stam every second, and those are just the focus scripts. Its signature scripts allow you to either offer your allies even more sustain, increase block amount, and reduce block cost by 8%, give a massive, I mean massive heal over time that lasts for 5 seconds if an ally leaves the link, or give an even bigger damage shield also if allies leave the link. If that wasn't enough, this ability has the best affect scripts of them all, offering the only AoE source of Minor Brittle, offering AoE Minor Courage, Minor Heroism, Minor Maim, Minor Breach, and Minor Vitality. By far the most versatile skill coming with scribing in June. And this is just the beginning. There are so many cool new things coming with Update 42, including the ability to customize the way that your skills look, and of course my favorite, the brand new Trial Lucent Citadel, which is seriously by far the best piece of content I have ever seen in ESO, and I have yet to see anyone disagree with that claim. Videos detailing the new styling system, as well as a full run of Lucent Citadel on Vet, and the Vet hard modes are linked in the description below. In the meantime, I want to know what you're most excited about with scribing and for Update 42. Let me know in the comments below, and also let me know if you have any questions. There is still a lot that's unknown, but I will answer them to the best of my ability. A special shout out and thank you to my current Patreons, Clyde, Alberg, Larry, Carla, and Joseph. Thank you so much for your support, my friends. It's because of you that this content is made possible. Seriously, I could not do it without you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. And thanks to all of you as well for all of your love and support. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next one.